Hello, gents. Welcome back to the Gentleman's Chat. I'm Cartoon Gentleman. I'm Rehash. And I'm Devin Ooze. And today we're going to be looking at the final episode of the two-parter that is My Adventures with Superman. In the last episode, Superman was captured by a force so evil it makes most supervillains look like a common drug dealer. The U.S. government.
Personally, I'm more interested in seeing how they're going to cover up the fact that they had all of the supervillains thus far attack Superman all at once in the middle of Metropolis.
Well then, let's not waste any more time. This is My Adventures with Superman. The episode begins in Metropolis, where Lois and Jimmy are doing everything they can in order to try to find Superman. They even recruited the kids from the very early episodes, but haven't done anything since those episodes.
While they're all worried about Superman, none are more worried than Lois, who's doing everything in her power and pulling every resource she can in order to find the Man of Steel. The kids reassure her, with their youthful vigor, that Superman is as good as found, they just need to keep looking. But Lois clearly is unconvinced.
Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna come out and say it. I am not a big fan of this Lois Lane. Yes, she's funny, yes, she has her moments, and yes, she's a tomboy fetish fantasy. But it takes more than that to become a likable character. But throughout the course of the series, she's shown to have a quick temper, is a liar, a manipulator, and she's a hypocrite by keeping that kryptonite and orb away from Superman. He has a right to know, and yet she still hasn't told him shit. And now look at things. But you know, I could almost forgive all of her negative qualities, all of them, if she was a villain. In which case, I heard that Rita and Lord Zed are currently open for interns if she wants to try out.
Well, we later cut to Superman as he's being held down by a combination of Cybertronian technology modified by humans and the parasite technology to drain his powers constantly. And here, he gets a one-on-one meeting with the General, who begins to interrogate him with all the usual questions. What's your invading force? How many are you? How strong are you? When is the invasion coming? Superman has no idea what he's talking about, of course, as he's just trying to do the right thing because he's a good man. But the General doesn't believe him. In fact, he is incredibly harsh on him.
He even resorts to torture. Not bad, though I personally would have gone with the snow globe treatment.
But, fed up with Superman playing the Boy Scout, the General finally reveals why he's so obsessed with trying to get information out of Superman. And we get a flashback via holograms. Apparently, the General and Amanda Waller were two rookies who were stationed to guard a large alien object along with a bunch of other military goons. And they definitely had a more lighthearted, jokey personality back then. But then the alien technology opens up and reveals a giant portal and a single man who I'm just going to assume is... And he begins to assault, sending hundreds of drones, and I know that symbol. That's Brainiac.
Zod working with Brainiac. That is a scary thought.
And they have every right to fear, as without Superman or the Power Rangers, they're completely overwhelmed and are nearly wiped to extinction. But then the portal closes for whatever reason, and all the robots die Phantom Menace style, leaving Amanda Waller and the General to survive. Do we even have a name for the General?
It doesn't really matter, as Superman sees this devastation, and the General gives him the answer to his question that Superman most feared in his life. He wasn't sent to Earth to be its protector. He was sent to Earth to be a weapon of war. And he demands answers. But all Superman can do is just sit there, hang his head, and cry. Cry at the realization that all he is a tool for destruction for the Kryptonians. But this genuinely takes the General aback.
You feel good about yourself, General?
You feel proud? You feel like a big man? You literally pushed a farm boy to tears. All because you had a rough time. Feel like a big man? Feel proud? You gonna get that pat on the back from dear old Daddy Dearest.
Okay, I think you might be a little harsh here, Rehash.
If anything, I'm being tame. The General and Amanda Waller have caused more damage to Metropolis by allowing their technology from the Kryptonians that they took and repurposed and caused massive devastation. They did more harm with that alone than Superman has done with his entire life. And yet they think he's the bad guy? They didn't even once try to approach him to have a decent conversation.
Okay, you and I both know that is not how Amanda Waller operates.
I know, and she is an idiot for not. I swear, Amanda Waller is the dumbest character in DC history, and she is determined to keep that title. She openly and aggressively antagonizes superheroes like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. She constantly employs supervillains, street level or otherwise, to her cause by threat of bombs in their chests or shock collar control, which never works. And her solution to dealing with anything that could even be remotely described as a threat when it isn't one is guarantee it becomes one. She does the astronomical equivalent of poking a bear with a sharp stick during hibernation, and then getting surprised it chases her down.
I feel like we're going to get a lot of comments after that spiel, and I don't even know if they're going to be positive or negative. Well, we cut back to Lois and the gang, where, once again, no luck trying to find Superman, like they actually had a chance to. And Jimmy comforts Lois as Lois breaks down, saying that not only is she worried about him, but she also is guilty because she said a very hurtful and awful thing to him before he flew off to save the day, about him just being normal. Of course, this stems from her not trusting Clark because of that orb thing that she still hasn't told him about. And Jimmy comforts her, saying the generic, "We'll find him, don't worry. He couldn't have gotten far, yada yada yada."
We then cut to the criminals as Parasite is not happy about being thrown into a jail cell and having Superman ripped from him once more.
But clearly he's not the only one who wants out. But then we see something unusual. Livewire seems to be able to produce electricity without her technology now. How did that happen? We don't know. But hey, she can do it. But just because she can, that doesn't mean she will. Not under the watchful eye of Amanda Waller, who's analyzing everything they're doing.
Oh yeah, she definitely knows. But then we see the General start doing something that I didn't think he was capable of doing up until this point. Truly starting to analyze the situation. He makes the argument to Amanda Waller that, given the time frame and age of Superman, he would probably be a baby at the time of him dropping off. So there's no way he could have actually been part of the attack. Maybe he is innocent. But Amanda Waller is not convinced. Mostly because she's Amanda Waller and she's a fucking moron, who will do anything to protect the country, even if it means blowing it up so that somebody else can't.
This is clearly evident where we see her actively press a button on that keyboard right there, and then immediately after we see Livewire shock collar get disabled, and the cameras go down. So now, Livewire, a superpowered metahuman now, is free to do whatever she wants.
Are we the baddies?
So with Livewire's freedom, the first thing she does is release the biggest, baddest powerhouse there, the Parasite. And after he suits up, he goes after the biggest, baddest powerhouse actually there, Superman. Superman is in no condition to fight, but Parasite don't care. He just wants to beat him.
And that he does, repeatedly and mercilessly. He just keeps pounding on Superman one punch after another. Even after the security shock collar is broken, he still won't put up a fight, because Superman adamantly refuses to be used as a weapon of any kind. Which kinda takes all the sport out of it if Superman doesn't fight back.
But don't worry, the General is here with Pretty Boy and a few nameless guards. I'm certain they can handle the parasite, especially after Livewire returns with all the supervillains now free from their cuffs and wanting some payback. Livewire specifically wants some revenge on Pretty Boy, and so she points one finger and shoots out his eye.
Hold your rootin' tootin' horses here. An orange helmet with a black metal jumpsuit, carrying dual swords and has advanced martial arts, and now is missing an eye. Is Pretty Boy Slade?
Wait, are you just figuring it out that was Slade Wilson?
Honestly, I've been calling him Pretty Boy ironically.
Oh, this is just embarrassing.
Well, Superman uses the time they're fighting to get his second wind, but the moment he stands up, the parasite wants the smoke. So Superman just nopes right on out of there. This is when Livewire uses her newfound electrical abilities to power up the parasite's suit even more, and then breaks a hole in the wall so that all the supervillains can get away, leaving the parasite, an uncontrollable monster, in the hands of the General and those adjacent. Keep in mind, all of this was caused because Amanda Waller let Livewire go.
Superman then emerges from the sewer system for some reason. Was he hanging out with the Ninja Turtles? Like, what the hell? When the child, whose name I physically cannot be bothered to remember, finds him at coincidentally the right moment, and then calls everybody to her location. We then cut to what I assume is their little childish secret base, where Lois and Jimmy reunite with a very much defeated Superman. Not defeated physically, but defeated emotionally, as he tells them that he was sent there, and he found out that he was sent to this planet to be a living weapon for his people to destroy the planet for conquering or just for funsies.
Lois does try to snap Superman back to his senses, but when you find out that your entire life of doing good is only leading up to being a living weapon, it kinda takes most of the wind out of your sails, especially since she hasn't really apologized for the comment she made earlier about being normal.
Also, this would have been the ideal time to tell him about the sphere.
Oh yeah, good point. Why isn't she telling him about the sphere?
I'm gonna chalk it up to the fact that the parasite has went from deranged Iron Man suit to freaking kaiju. What the hell? Okay, admittedly, I might have been a little harsh. Okay, I've been majorly harsh on this version of the parasite. I realize that throughout the series they've been going for more of technologically superior humans rather than biological superpowers, where the only biological superpowers have been reserved for aliens and other dimensional beings, with the only exception currently being Livewire. So I'm assuming they're going to be introducing more meta-based powers as the series continues. But with that being said, even by the comic book standards, this parasite suit seems way overpowered to the point where it's starting to affect my area of disbelief. There's only so much I can tolerate. By rule of cool standards, this should be amazing. I really just want to sit here and just geek out about Superman going up against giant monster parasite. But at the end of the day, I'm reminded that this thing is a suit. An iron suit. It's not a giant mech suit. It's a regular suit like Iron Man. How is it capable of doing this?
So after gaining a kaiju body, the parasite does what anybody would do once they gain a kaiju body. Destroy some shit, call out Superman for being a pussy, and find ways to get even stronger. Superman, even though he's not mentally prepared, decides to square up. Lois tries to stop him and say that they'll find another way, where Superman proceeds to say, "Bitch, what other way are you gonna come up with to take on that? The solution is what it's always been, me going punch happy against the bastard," and flies off, leaving Lois and Jimmy wondering what they could do. Superman squares up, and they proceed to have a bit of a punch battle.
As far as superhero versus supervillain Megazord goes, it's not that bad, but unfortunately there's nothing Superman can do against a creature of this size, because anything that Superman does against him only adds fuel to his power, which is already pretty considerable. Note to self, look into parasite technology for my own Megazord use.
Lois is beside herself for what to do next, but surprisingly, it's Jimmy who has a solution. He pulls up his YouTube channel with his millions of followers and subscribers and asks for their help, revealing his face to them and saying that Superman is in need. He also gives the mic to Lois, who gives an inspirational speech about the human spirit and that Superman is the embodiment of that spirit, but he needs their help. And the best way they could help him out right now is to turn off all the power in the entire city so that the parasite can't feed off of the city's energy and get stronger.
I suppose this plan technically could work, but he's already absorbed so much power that I don't think Superman has it in him to be able to fight such a monstrosity.
And considering that Livewire is practically a battery.
Well, I don't think she's there anymore, so it is possible he could drain the battery enough for it to work. And of course, because we're nearing the end of the episode and Lois gave her Hail Mary, the entire city agrees to turn off the power grid, which causes the parasite to shrink down and him to rage the fact and call Superman a massive cheater for taking away his source of power. Yeah, the parasite's personality is less supervillain and more of an old-school Xbox Live chat room personified. And Superman's just like, what, are you afraid of an even fight? And they start duking it out some more. But this is when Superman conveniently unlocks yet another Superman ability, X-ray vision. And he sees the core of the suit and sees our little bit of a Halo 3 rage baiter and flies right through the parasite armor in a pretty cool scene and pushes the poor bastard out of it. And without someone driving the suit, it's nothing more than a giant statue. So the day is saved.
You know, as a supervillain, I really shouldn't be advocating for this, but I feel like a more memorable finale would be him tearing apart the suit piece by piece and chucking those pieces in random directions into orbit. He has the strength, he has the speed, he can do it.
Or Superman can pull a Transformers and drop the suit in the bottom of the Mariana Trench.
I'm personally an advocate for just tucking the whole thing into a volcano.
So the day is saved, everybody's cheering, everybody's celebrating, the spirit of Superman is renewed, and there's a giant metal monstrosity in the middle of downtown Metropolis. But this should be nothing new for this city.
Superman reunites with Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane, and they have a big group hug, and Superman and Lois proceed to have the best after-battle sex on the Daily Planet they've ever had. So Jimmy decides to bus on out of there. But he grabs Lois's purse and notices the green orb, turns it on, and now he knows that not all Supermen are good little Boy Scouts.
And speaking of the Scouts, the General returns to Amanda and Deathstroke as they inform him that he's no longer in command over the project to kill Superman and arm Earth against the Kryptonians. He tries to fight back, saying that this is his operation, but Amanda Waller says not anymore. She's in charge. And now that she is his superior, she gives him one order: eliminate Superman.
Oh joy! Amanda Waller is put in charge of the government-funded program to kill Superman. What a shock. The bitch is going to create the Legion of Doom before she creates a method of killing Superman.
Am I going to have to save the world? Because I really do not want to save the world. I want to conquer the world. I want to rule the world. I want to have the world as my property. I can't do that if your governments destroy the world first.
I also want to point out right out there that Jimmy Olsen now knows that Lois knows that there's other variations of Superman that have turned evil and destroyed all the planet. So, yeah, you're gonna have to deal with that. And I'm not even going to feel pity when Superman does have his inevitable crash out when he finds out that Lois knew about all this entire time. Because there ain't no way Jimmy's gonna keep a lid on it.
Now, as for the last fight between Parasite versus Superman, I suppose it was entertaining enough, but it's nothing really to write home about. Superman the Animated Adventures, Justice League, and Justice League Unlimited had way more entertaining fights way before this show even existed. Yes, this show isn't about the punch battling, but this was clearly a final series boss fight with a kaiju-level monster. I think you could have done a little bit more to make it a little bit more memorable and impactful. Not to say that the Parasite wasn't intimidating and threatening, but he was all style, no substance. The Parasite from literally decades earlier felt like a bigger threat.
And he was just a guy in a purple suit. Also, are we going to explain how Livewire suddenly became a meta-human just completely out of the blue? I mean, I know the original reason of how she became a meta-human, but this isn't the original her. This is the My Adventures of Superman version. I'm not sure if it was quite explained correctly just how the hell she got her meta-human abilities. It was all tech before. Why the change now?
But with one episode remaining, we're just going to have to wait and see what's going to happen once all this secrecy of multiversal Superman blows up in all their faces. And with most of the enemies gone, we're going to have to come up with a new enemy for the final episode. So, how's it going to turn out? Well, we're just going to have to find out next time.
But until then, I'm Rehash,
I'm Devin Ooze,
and I'm the Cartoon Gent. And we'll see you all in the next episode.